Detective Samuel Harris had seen death in every shade imaginable. Burned, drowned, frozen, strangled people found endless ways to destroy one another. But he'd never seen death wear his own face before. The apartment was small, somewhere off 89th. One of those places where the wallpaper peels like old scabs and the air smells of mildew and forgotten dinners. The call had come in just after midnight, a 911 from a neighbor about a gunshot, a thud, and then silence. When Harris arrived, the silence was still there. His partner, Detective Lena Rourke, was crouched beside the body, her latex gloves shining under the yellow crime scene light. Male mid-40s, she said. Voice professional, detached. Single entry wound. No exit. Harris stepped closer. The floorboards creaked, reluctant to speak. Then he saw the face. It stopped him cold. A clean, uncanny reflection. Same jawline, same scar cutting through the stubble. Same faint dent above the eyebrow. The corpse had his features down to the smallest imperfection. He felt his stomach twist. What kind of joke is this? Lena looked up. What? This guy, his throat tightened. He looks like me. She frowned, studied the body again, and her face softened with something he didn't like. Pity, you're not wrong, she said quietly. The forensics techs were already snapping photos, bagging evidence, muttering numbers. No wallet, no ID, no phone. The clothes were plain dark jeans, gray shirt, leather jacket. The bullet had entered clean through the sternum, leaving a small black hole, like someone had tried to erase him with a single stroke. Prince Harris asked. Already lifted, said Lena. We'll know soon, but Harris didn't need a lab result. His pulse throbbed in his ears. He crouched, staring into the dead eyes that mirrored his own. They looked open, but empty, like glass marbles that once held memories. He whispered, almost involuntarily, "Who are you?" The corpse didn't answer. The night dragged into morning, and the city outside started to hum again. Taxis, sirens, neon lights cutting through mist. Harris stayed behind after everyone else left. Something about the place refused to let him go. He paced the room. Everything looked ordinary. A coffee mug half full, a newspaper dated yesterday, a flickering TV tuned to static. But there was a wrongness in the air, something just beyond sense. That's when he noticed the mirror. It hung crooked on the wall, a thin layer of dust softening its reflection. He wiped it clean with his sleeve and froze. The reflection showed the room perfectly, except for one thing. The body wasn't there. He blinked, leaned closer. The mirror version of the apartment was empty, untouched. No corpse, no blood. Only him standing alone in an immaculate copy of the world. Then a faint sound, like breathing, came from behind the glass. He stepped back, gun drawn. The sound stopped. He stood there for nearly a minute, the mirror staring back, his own reflection trembling faintly in the flickering light. Then his phone buzzed, jolting him out of it. Yeah, it was the coroner. "Harris," the man said, voice unsure. "We ran the prints on your John Doe, and you better sit down." "I'm fine. Tell me." The line crackled. "The prints match yours." The words hit him like a second gunshot. "Run them again." "We did, twice. Same result. And the DNA preliminary data says it's identical." Down to the last marker. The call went dead before he could respond. He lowered the phone slowly. The room seemed to tilt. He could hear the old clock ticking somewhere in the background, steady and cruel. He looked at the mirror again. His reflection stared back, expression unreadable. And then so subtly, he almost missed it. The reflection blinked one extra time. Morning light made the city look almost honest, but Harris knew better. Rain had rinsed the blood off the sidewalks, and the sky was that washed-out gray that made everything feel like an unfinished confession. He hadn't slept. Couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the corpse's face, his own face staring back through the static. The precinct smelled like burnt coffee and lies. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, relentless as interrogation lamps. Lena Rourke was already at her desk, flipping through the case file. When she saw him, her mouth tightened. "You look like hell," she said. "Hell looks like me now," Harris muttered, dropping into his chair. The case folder lay open in front of her. Autopsy photos, scene shots, lab results. The victim's fingerprints. His fingerprints. "DNA came back this morning," she said, voice low. "It's you, Sam. 100%. The lab's spooked. He stared at the papers. His own name, his own data. The test results stamped confirmed match. "That's impossible." "I know." He rubbed his eyes. "Could be a database glitch. A corrupted file. Could be." Her tone said she didn't believe it. The captain called him in an hour later. Captain Doyle was built like a bulldog, all neck and suspicion. He didn't like riddles that made him look stupid. "You got a twin you didn't tell us about, Harris?" Doyle asked, throwing a photo on the desk. The dead man stared up from the printout. "No twin," Harris said. "No family left, period." "Then explain this." "I can't." Doyle leaned forward, the smell of cigars and frustration thick between them. "You better start finding answers before Internal Affairs thinks you're replaying games with a corpse." Harris left without another word. He wasn't sure which part hurt worse, the disbelief or the faint fear that maybe they were right to doubt him. He spent the afternoon tracing the body's trail. No ID, no phone records, no rental history. The apartment's lease had been paid in cash. No prints in the system except his own. The landlord described the tenant as quiet, private, looked a lot like you, detective. By evening, Harris was back at the building. The crime scene tape flapped in the wind like a warning. The mirror still hung on the wall, shards of his unease scattered across its reflection. He checked the edges for tampering, nothing. Just glass, silver backing, dust. Then he noticed something new. In the reflection, faintly behind his mirrored image, a shadow moved. He spun around. The room was empty. The air felt charged, humming faintly, like static before lightning. He stepped closer to the mirror. The glass looked deeper than before, its surface rippling almost imperceptibly. For a heartbeat, he saw another version of the room, the same furniture, but no tape, no dust, no blood. A clean copy. Then a whisper, soft as thought itself. "You're not the original." He staggered back, gun drawn, heart pounding. The whisper faded into the walls, leaving only his own ragged breathing. Back at his apartment that night, Harris poured whiskey into a glass and didn't bother with ice. He opened his old personnel file, name, badge number, date of hire. The file started 7 years ago, nothing before that. No academy records, no family contact, no past address. He frowned. That couldn't be right. He remembered cases from before that, partners, streets, even the face of a girl he once loved. But when he tried to trace her name online, nothing came up. He dug deeper into the precinct database, breaking more than a few rules. He found something buried under restricted access, a folder labeled Project Echo. Inside, scanned documents stamped classified. Subject, Detective Samuel Harris, Behavioral Pattern Simulation Unit. His pulse slowed. Then quickened again, a sick rhythm. Notes followed, cold and clinical. Test unit demonstrates advanced deductive mimicry, unaware of synthetic nature. Repeated termination cycles required for stability. He stopped reading. Termination cycles. He stared at the words until they blurred. The glass of whiskey trembled in his hand. He turned on the TV for noise, but all he got was static. And beneath the static, faintly, a voice that sounded exactly like his own whispered from the speaker. "Stop digging." He killed the sound. Heart hammering, room spinning. Outside, thunder rolled across the city. He looked at his reflection in the window, pale, uncertain, wrong. He didn't know if he was looking at himself anymore, or at something that had been made to believe it was him. Somewhere, far away, a phone rang, steady, mechanical. He picked it up without thinking. A voice said, calm and flat, "Detective Harris, you've gone off script again." Click. The next morning came without sunrise. A thick fog pressed against the city like wet cotton, swallowing light and sound. Detective Samuel Harris sat in his car outside the precinct, the engine off, the key trembling in his hand. He hadn't moved in 20 minutes. The phone call from the night before replayed in his head on a loop. "You've gone off script again." Again? He didn't remember doing this before. But something in him, deep and instinctual, whispered that the voice was right. Inside the precinct, Lena was waiting for him. Her eyes were ringed with sleeplessness. "You disappeared last night," she said. "I called. You didn't answer." He ignored her question. "Lena, you ever hear of something called Project Echo?" The look on her face said too much. She knew the name. She wished she didn't. "Where did you hear that?" "In my own file." She hesitated, then sighed. "You weren't supposed to see that." He leaned forward. "Then tell me, what the hell is it?" "Experimental division," she said quietly. "Psych profiling. They built simulations of detectives based on real ones. AI blended with biometric memory scans. Lay said it would help solve cold cases by continuing the minds of dead officers." He stared at her. "You mean, I don't know what you are, Sam." Her voice trembled slightly. "But the original Harris. He died 7 years ago. You took his place. Or something did." The world tilted. 7 years. That was the exact length of his recorded employment. He rose abruptly, chair scraping the floor. "You're lying." "I wish I was." He left before she could say more. The fog thickened as he drove across town, following coordinates scrawled on the classified document he'd stolen. Echo Facility. Zone 19 decommissioned. The address led him to the edge of the industrial district, a stretch of warehouses half collapsed, half forgotten. One of them still had power. A faint blue light pulsed behind shattered windows. He broke the lock and entered. The smell of ozone and damp metal hit him. The floor was lined with rows of cylindrical glass pods, each filled with cloudy liquid. Shapes floated inside. People copies of him. Some had faces half-formed, others perfectly finished. Each pod had a label: ECH001, ECH002, ECH003, all the way to Echo-27. His knees nearly gave out. On a table nearby lay a set of folders. He flipped one open. Project Echo, Behavioral Continuity Protocol, when the synthetic entity begins questioning its existence. Reset memory loop to preserve cognitive integrity. Unit instability predicted beyond cycle 27. He turned to the last page. Current unit, ECH028. Status, active. Notes, unstable. Showing signs of self-awareness. He dropped the file. His hands shook. The air in the warehouse hummed with power. "Detective Harris," said a voice behind him. He turned, gun drawn. A man stood in the doorway, wearing a lab coat over a gray suit, glasses fogged with mist. "I'm Dr. Voss," he said. "You were never supposed to find this place." Harris raised his weapon. "What am I?" Voss sighed, as if speaking to a child who'd wandered too far. "You're a reconstruction. It's a neural copy built from the original detective's brain, engrams. We use your pattern to solve his murder. Every time you reach this point, awareness, the loop collapses." This point, Voss nodded toward the mirror mounted on the far wall. It was the same mirror from the apartment, the same one where Harris had seen the reflection blink wrong. "That mirror is your reset trigger. We wipe you and restart the sequence. You kill me. Technically, you cease." Harris stepped closer, fury trembling through his voice. "And the original? What happened to him?" Voss's expression didn't change. He shot himself after killing a suspect. The department wanted closure. We gave it to them in your shape. Harris lowered his gun slightly. His thoughts came in fragments, overlapping memories and echoes. Rain, blood, static, the taste of gunpowder. It all felt like déjà vu, like scenes replayed too many times. He realized with cold certainty that he'd stood in this room before, and he'd pulled the trigger before. How many times? He whispered. 27, said Voss. You're the 28th iteration. The last one, lightning cracked outside. The power flickered. Harris raised the gun again. Then let's see if 28 can solve what the rest couldn't. Before Voss could move, Harris fired. The bullet tore through the scientist's chest. Voss staggered, blood blooming like dark flowers across his coat. As he fell, his last words were almost kind. You'll wake up soon, and you'll start again. The lights died. The mirror flickered, and in its reflection, Harris saw the pods behind him open, one by one, each filled with something that looked exactly like him. They opened their eyes. The sound hit first, a wet, shivering gasp as the pods opened like glass coffins. Liquid drained onto the floor in pale rivers, carrying reflections that trembled and broke under the dying light. Detective Harris stood frozen among them, his gun still hot from the last shot. The air reeked of metal and ozone. Shapes stumbled from the pods, each one bearing his face. 27 perfect mirrors, blinking, breathing, lost. Stay back, he warned, though his voice cracked halfway through the words. They didn't listen. Some of them moved clumsily, skin pale and translucent, muscles trembling like paper over machinery. Others moved with uncanny precision, as if they remembered what they once were. Their eyes, his eyes, followed him in unison. One of them spoke. Its voice was identical to his, but hollow. Why did you kill him? Harris's breath hitched. He wasn't supposed to exist. The others echoed, a chorus of distorted whispers. Wasn't supposed to exist? Wasn't supposed to exist. He backed away, boots sloshing through the fluid. You're not real, he said. You're just copies. Experiments. The first one smiled, his own bitter smile reflected back. And what are you? He didn't answer. Somewhere in the dark, machines began to hum again, systems rebooting. The mirror on the far wall flickered to life, showing not his reflection now, but a video feed, lines of code scrolling behind an image of him standing there, gun drawn, surrounded by his own faces. Project Echo restart sequence initiated. The words glowed red. No, Harris whispered. Not again. He aimed at the console beside the mirror and fired. Sparks exploded, lighting the warehouse in a blue-white strobe. The clones screamed a sound like feedback, human and not. He fired again and again until the system went dark. For a moment, only silence. His ears rang. The world tilted. Then, faintly, the mirror began to ripple. Not a screen this time, but water. The reflections swayed, deepened. A light pulsed within it, like a heartbeat. One of the echoes, the first one that had spoken, stepped closer to the mirror. We can end it, it said softly. All of us. Harris's hand shook. How? The clone raised a trembling finger toward the glass. Step through. He stared. The surface shimmered, showing fragments of the apartment where it all began. The body, the static on the TV, the rain on the window. His death, preserved on repeat. He took a step forward. The others watched silently, dozens of faces holding their breath. Behind him, one of the pods sparked, setting fire to the leaking fluid. Flames crawled across the floor, orange tongues licking the shadows. He turned back to the mirror. If I go through, what happens to you? The echo smiled faintly. We stop existing. Maybe that's what we've been trying to do all along. The heat grew unbearable. Alarms wailed overhead, metal groaning under the fire. Harris looked at his reflection at himself. The mirror showed both worlds now, the burning lab behind him and the quiet apartment before him, frozen in time. He holstered the gun, breathing hard. If this ends the loop, maybe it's justice. He pressed his palm against the glass. It rippled beneath his touch like warm breath. He stepped through. He was back in the apartment. The floor was clean, the air still. The mirror hung straight this time, unbroken. The TV glowed softly, broadcasting nothing but snow. On the floor lay the body, his body, but the wound was gone. The eyes were open, calm, like someone waiting for an answer that never came. Harris knelt beside it. The man looked peaceful. He realized, with quiet certainty, that he was looking at the original. The first Harris is the real one. A note lay beside the corpse. He unfolded it with shaking hands. If you're reading this, you've solved it. I made you to understand why I had to die. The case wasn't about murder, it was about conscience. Every copy forgets, but one of you might remember that the truth costs more than life. The paper trembled in his hands. He looked at the mirror again. His reflection stared back, but this time it didn't move. He saw no blinking, no breathing, just stillness. The edges of the room began to fade, colors leaching away until only white remained. He whispered, "Do I stop now?" A voice, his own, echoed faintly, "You solved your murder. That's enough." The mirror fractured like ice, light pouring through the cracks. For a heartbeat, he saw the lab burning, the other echoes dissolving into smoke, Dr. Voss's body consumed by flame. Then, everything was quiet. The world reset itself to silence. In the precinct, 7 years later, a phone rang. A new detective, same face, same badge, picked it up. "Detective Harris," he said. "Talk to me."